I'm here to represent the Carney family, and I know they wanted to take time to thank you for being here and sharing this moment and this celebration of Kevin's life. He was good at so many things. I'm finding out now just from the video, and I know they appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to honor Kevin. Will you join me in a prayer? Father, we're grateful that we've been able to spend this time together to honor the legacy of Kevin. Father, he touched so many lives, and I pray that we can reach out and touch lives the way he did. May we truly reach out and love each other as you have loved us. And I pray that moving forward, Father, we can honor his legacy and his life by showing our love to others each and every day. We just ask all these things in your son's name. Amen. I'm going to hand it off to Shelley and the rest of the crew. Let them come up and speak. Thank you.
Hello. Welcome to the Memorial Celebration of Life for Kevin Carney. I'm Shelley Carney, and I'm so glad you're here today to help me honor the memory of my husband, Kevin. I want to acknowledge the people who helped make this event a reality. Thank you, Mike Hendricks, for opening your church to us and giving us a place to gather. Thank you, Jarrell Johnson, for facilitating the live streaming and coordinating this event. Thank you, Stephanie Cordova, for getting me connected with Mike, keeping people informed, and providing drinks and flowers. Thank you to Jennifer Veldman and the employees at Southwest Airlines Ontario Airport who sent this message along with a donation. We loved Kevin, and our whole station is sad to hear of his passing. Let me know what we can do to help. And as I got here today, I see flowers from the Phoenix Ground Ops and from TWU. I am blessed with many friends and family who've come together to help make this happen. If you contributed and I did not acknowledge you by name, I apologize for the oversight, and I thank you. We are live streaming this event for the family and friends who could not be here in person. I send my love and gratitude to everyone watching, including my mom and dad, my son Jared, and Kevin's youngest brother Scott and his family. Thank you for your support and your virtual attendance. Kevin Joseph Carney was born on March 2nd, 1962 at the Tempe Community Hospital in Tempe, Arizona, where his mother Vicki worked as a nurse. Kevin was Paul and Vicki's firstborn, followed by his brothers Brian and Scott. Kevin and his brothers were active in Boy Scouts, and their parents were Scout leaders. They all earned Eagle Scout badges. Kevin also served as an altar boy at Our Lady of Mount Carmel Church in Tempe. He participated in Future Farmers of America, raising animals and crops. He was president of his FFA chapter at Tempe High School in his junior and senior years. Kevin was a year ahead of me in high school. His brother Brian, over here, was in my class. I remember walking through the hall at Tempe High with Brian after class one day, and we stopped when he saw Kevin at his locker. He introduced us, and I noticed on the inside of his locker door was the poem titled Footsteps in the Sand. For those of you who may not know what that is, I'll quickly read it now. One night I dreamed a dream. As I was walking along the beach with my Lord, across the dark sky flashed scenes from my life. For each scene, I noticed two sets of footprints in the sand, one belonging to me and one to my Lord. After the last scene of my life flashed before me, I looked back at the footprints in the sand. I noticed that at many times along the path of my life, especially at the very lowest and saddest times, there was only one set of footprints. This really troubled me, so I asked the Lord about it. Lord, you said once I decided to follow you, you'd walk with me all the way. but I noticed that during the saddest and most troublesome times of my life, there was only one set of footprints. I don't understand why, when I needed you the most, you would leave me. He whispered, "My precious child, I love you and will never leave you, never ever during your trials and testings. When you saw only one set of footprints, it was then that I carried you." This was my first impression of Kevin, and I never forgot it. One reason I never forgot it is because Kevin was the type of person who would carry me or anybody else who needed him during their trials and testings. Kevin and I were married on a Friday evening on May 4th, 1984. We went on our honeymoon to Oahu, Hawaii, and it gave Kevin a chance to wear all his favorite Hawaiian shirts and buy a few more. This one you see here in the front is one that I made. I sewed it for him before we were married, and he wore it every chance he got, every party, every birthday, everything. Anytime he went out where he was going to be celebrating, he would wear that shirt. Yeah, it's getting pretty tattered. Before we got married, Kevin worked for Lockheed Air Terminal, fueling airplanes full-time, and for Southwest Airlines, cleaning airplanes part-time. Then he quit his full-time fueling job, and we hoped he would get a full-time position at Southwest when we came back from our honeymoon in Hawaii. Luckily, that's what happened, because we spent all the money in our bank account on our fabulous honeymoon. It sounds crazy now, but we were young and in love, and it was a beautiful adventure. Kevin worked for Southwest Airlines ramp, provisioning, and cargo, but he worked even harder for his fellow employees as a union representative, beginning with ROPA and then TWU Local 555 Triple Nickel. He spent a large chunk of his life working in and around airplanes. He even got his private pilot's license back in the day. I remember they used to report the weather based on the temperature and conditions at the airport, and I would always say, "But who lives at the airport?" And Kevin would raise his hand. Kevin and I were married for 10 years before we had our first child, Alicia. Our deal was that I would carry her for the first 9 months, and then he would carry her after that. He'd had experience caring for his younger brothers and other babies, and I had no idea how to do any of that. But he showed me what to do, and it was another beautiful adventure. He called Alicia his princess and did everything he could to make her happy. Then we had our second child, Jared. He was Kevin's little buddy, and it broke his heart to see him cry or be upset. Kevin was a wonderful father, and he worked his schedule so he could be present at our kids' concerts and plays. He even coached their YMCA volleyball teams and chaperoned many school field trips. He always supported my interests in work, such as teaching preschool, making films, and all the YouTube channels that Toby Eunice and I created. He loved going treasure hunting with us because he enjoyed being outdoors in the mountains and the high desert. He was a curious, lifelong learner who read a lot of books and listened to several podcasts to feed his mind every day. Jumping ahead to the last several years, Kevin looked forward to retirement, so he would have the time to learn and explore all the things that interested him. In fact, he had an app on his phone that kept a countdown to the minute of his retirement date. Anytime anybody asked, he'd pull it out. He'd show, "This is how long I have." He's pretty excited. Some other things that fascinated him were 3D printing toys and gadgets, and some of you will see a couple of them out on the table. And he would give those to family and friends. He enjoyed growing a garden and hydroponic plants. He enjoyed learning computer programming and learning how to paint scenic landscapes on the computer. He also loved being the anchor on the Cocoa Bird balloon crew. He had a great time chasing after the balloon with the rest of the crew, and he even learned to pilot. He loved the adventure of it. A favorite story of his was the first time he flew the balloon, and it started to rain and hail, and he had to land fast and hard. He told it better. Kevin liked to make people laugh, and he would joke to break the tension of any situation. He made friends with the doctors and nurses at the cancer clinic and tried to make their day a little brighter. He asked me to bring in candy or muffins to the hospital crew when I came to visit him in the hospital. In the end, he had to write notes or use gestures because it was too difficult for him to speak. The cancer that started in his tongue had spread throughout his mouth, jaw, and throat, but he didn't give up trying to make people smile. I hope that some of you will come up today and share your stories of how you interacted with Kevin and what you learned from him or remember about him. What I learned from Kevin is how to love and be loved, how to take care of babies, how to be generous and patient, how to look for and enjoy the adventures in life, and how to never give up trying to make people smile. Now I'd like to introduce my brother and Kevin's fellow uncle, Kirk Dalton.
Wow. I see, I didn't know that part about when you met Kevin, because I know the part when I met Kevin. And it sounds like your same story in that 1978, my first day of chemistry, I'm a year ahead of Kevin. And who should be in my chemistry class but Kevin Carney and my future wife, Deanna, who has been now married to me forever. But that all being said, it's just the parallels, the Kevin's love, his giving, I saw it as a friend first and as a family member. And that's exactly to a T who Kevin was. As far as our family, our kids here, my kids, 3 adult kids here, he so enjoyed the being called the mean Uncle Kevin. He named himself, mind you, he named himself, I'm mean Uncle Kevin. I will challenge these kids they're gonna have fun, but they ain't ever gonna beat me in anything so they can understand how life is. So much so that my children take that within their own, the next generation, mean Uncle Kevin. Now, Alicia, you were 10 years after my kids, so I had to wait for the nomiker mean Uncle Kirk, but I got it. I was so enthralled with the way Kevin was with kids and others and the love and the passion that he had, not only for that, we would talk about our jobs. At the time, I was retail management and he was union. So we would have these discussions and always agreeing to meet in the middle or just jump in the pool and we'll talk about something different. But what a great guy. And I know his love, his care, his passion touched so many individuals here in the room, here online with us, that it's just amazing. And I really looked up to that gentleman. I wanted to be so much like Kevin, to all of a sudden pick up a book and learn I too could fly a plane, and he did. He got his private pilot's license, excuse me. Just these type of things he would, 3D printer, I'm gonna go learn about it. During our travels, and again, later in my career, I became a project manager. I traveled almost as much as Kevin, and we'd actually end up in some of the same cities. And he always had a different book in his hand on a new topic, a new subject that he wanted to learn about just because it sounded interesting. As my kids were growing up, he read the Harry Potter series just so he could talk to them about, well, what do you think? My kids hadn't read it yet, but he was getting ready for when they were ready to read it. So Kevin, he was just a great guy. He is missed. He is deeply loved. Condolences from your side of the family, from Mom and Richard and Dad, from Deanna's side of the family. We've reached out and said, let Shelley and Alicia and Jared know how special that gentleman was. So you touched all those. And one last story, just about how caring and how far it goes out. At one point, my in-laws had lost a relative, and they were elderly, and they wanted to go back to Michigan to attend services. So Kevin managed to find tickets, flights, was at the airport to make sure they got on their plane, and kept me in the loop the entire way until they got there safely. Just because that's the kind of guy he was. He's just, I love you, Kevin. I love your family. I'm so enjoy being part of it. You've brought so much to this world, and truly, well, thank you. Thank you for being you. I now will turn it over to the next person who would like to talk. If there is anyone, don't feel obligated in any way. I think that I may be turning it back over to Toby. You heading this way?
We are, unless there's anyone in the audience that would like, Susie?
Come on up.
Please feel free to come up and tell your stories about Kevin. We'd love that.
Hello, everybody. My husband Mike and I are Cocoa Bird. What an anchor you call him. He was more than that. He taught me how to tie a knot. It involved, I don't know, a Boy Scout in a tree and something. But I tie that knot the same way every time I tie it now because the Boy Scout in the tree in the tent. I ran out of coffee one morning. And here's Kevin with his cup of coffee. Gave me the rest of his coffee. Because sometimes at 5 o'clock in the morning, coffee is very, very important. The weather, the flight and the weather, that was Mike. That was a fun day in Colorado, let me tell you. That was a fun day. We loved him. He taught us a lot. I hope we taught him a little bit. We shared with his family. What a joy. That man was a joy. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, my name's Eddie Goitia, and when my wife, Michelle Roper, and I were talking a few weeks back, and we found out that Kevin had cancer, I turned to her and said, my dearest friend Kevin Carney has cancer, and she immediately knew who he was. And she was in the class behind us, and I didn't know that. And I think that was pretty incredible. I think what also was really touching is that when we boarded a Southwest Airlines flight this morning, it was really surreal. It was just like, oh, I can't believe we're getting on a Southwest Airlines flight to go to Albuquerque. But he was my oldest friend in the world. We started kindergarten together back in 1967. We were altar boys together. We were in Boy Scouts with Brian and Scott, and we camped together, and we shot BB guns together and some rifles and got in trouble. And on our own, we hiked the Superstition Mountains together and had a wonderful time. And I will say that there was one time that Kevin and I don't know how we got volunteered to go cook for some leadership group. And we were at Mount Carmel Church in the parking lot with our backpacks just sitting there. And those of you who are familiar with this wonderful nun called Sister Valeria comes out of nowhere, rather large woman, and says, what are you two doing? And we're waiting for a ride, and well, you have some time on your hands. And she took us back into Mount Carmel and handed us both a couple of chisels. And Kevin and I proceeded to take gum off of the underside of pews for about 6 hours. I don't know, was that long? It's like, and so he said, do you think we're done? Do you think the ride's here? I go, I don't know. So one of us would keep running back and forth, in and out, and we finally got out of there. And so if you ever go to Mount Carmel again, where you got married, there's probably still some gum under the pews. We're sorry. But, you know, we did a lot together. And then and in high school, you know, you get your friends and you kind of go your separate ways, and you do things. And I would see him in the hallways, and we would talk. And I remember it was our sophomore year, and for some reason, he came up to me and said, we need to finish our Eagle Scouts. I said, well, I don't know if we can do that. I mean, we're sophomores in high school or something like that. He said, no, we can do it, and we can do it together. And he pushed me, and we did it. We finished together. And I was so glad. And I wouldn't have done that if it wasn't for him. 2 years later, I had a major surgery when I was in high school in my hip. And he was, of course, the president of FAA, Future Farmers of America, and asked me to to play Donkey Kong basketball, and I was on a couple of crutches. I said, I can't play, Kevin. He goes, all right, well, just show up somehow at the gymnasium. And I showed up at the front door, and he was there waiting with me. With some very big cowboy guys, and they actually lifted me up and put me at the center of the basketball court. He says, you can't play, you can sit there, and you can have a center court seat. He was just that kind of guy. He really was. Later in life, I would travel a lot, and I'd go to Phoenix Sky Harbor and dial him up and call him up, go, you here? Yeah, I'm here. Can you come up and have a cup of coffee? Come up and have a cup of coffee, and we would chat till my flight was ready to go. And I always would say to him, can you bump me to first class? And he would just do this chuckle. He would never say no. He would just do this chuckle, we'd shake hands. The last time I saw him was at Monty's when we had to sell a restaurant, and we sold it. And his father's rifle was up there on the wall, and he came to pick it up from Albuquerque, and we chatted, but that wasn't the only time. He would always come up and show up, and for you union guys, we'd sit there and talk about union business for 2 or 3 hours at a time, and I said, don't you have to leave? And he goes, no, we can talk some more. And we talk and talk, and I was like you, Kirk, I was on the other side of the union stuff, but he loved the union, he loved representing people. And I think that was what's really great about him. And so I will forever miss him. He is truly my oldest friend, and I love him.
I'm Tyler Clough. I first met Kevin early on in my career at Southwest Airlines because I was getting into trouble a lot. And he was representing me right off the bat. But one of the first indelible memories I have is just at that first meeting with Southwest management. You know, we call them fact-finding meetings, but you're only in a fact-finding meeting because you're probably going to be getting in trouble. You know, how diligent Kevin was in getting all the details to make sure he didn't leave any stone unturned. I learned an awful lot from him, and from that moment, my interest in the union was piqued. And over the years, as Kevin went from a local Phoenix union rep to a district rep and a member of the local executive board, I always looked up to him and always admired him for what he represented and what he did. You know, my heart, you know, as you mentioned, Jennifer Veldman, I've read arbitration rulings with her specific name on it, and I know he touched and a lot of people in a lot of the cities that he represented. In 2013, I ran against Kevin because I wanted to be in that position. And, you know, in the world of politics, it's very easy to start slinging some mud, but there was nothing bad I could say about Kevin. I actually had several people tell me, Tyler, was your campaign letter for you or an endorsement of Kevin? And that's literally, I could not say anything bad about Kevin. The only thing I could really say was, well, yeah, Kevin's been great, but, you know, I want to try too. And so that was the extent of my campaign letter. And as I went out to try and campaign, I didn't win, but I do remember Kevin calling me before the vote was taken and taking the time saying, Tyler, you did a good job. You'll be a great district rep if you win. You know, just the thought behind it. Well, a few years later, he asked me to be his alternate district representative. And because he was involved with negotiations, I did a lot of the work of a district rep. And he was right there with me, showing me everything. He says, I know that you're interested in this. And, you know, just like he had his countdown clock for his retirement, he had his countdown clock for when he's no longer going to be a district rep. And he would show that to me all the time. Oh, Tyler, this is how much longer I'm going to be around. And so I'll never forget that either, because that was a big deal for him. And you know, I am the district rep that I am now because of Kevin and what he taught me. And I always strive to be the representative that he was, because it was, he cared about the people that he represented. He had a wonderful legacy at our union. And one thing I want to share with the family that you might not know right now, but everything that I've heard about his quest for knowledge, his quest to constantly be learning, we as a union recognize that. We have a scholarship that we give out every year for people, you know, our members and their dependents to, you know, go to college and to learn more. At our last board meeting, we voted to rename that scholarship the Kevin Carney TW Scholarship. We couldn't think of a better way to honor Kevin than to do that. One of the things Kevin also did is, at one point when there was a lot going on and I was gone a lot, he sent flowers to my wife saying, you know, sorry we're taking your husband away from your family for, so much, but we appreciate, you know, your sacrifice. That's just the kind of man Kevin was. He touched so many people. He was such a good man. I've shed a lot of tears over the last little while. I'm definitely going to miss him. And just my heart goes out to your family. But one thing I hold dear in my heart is that families go beyond this world, and we will see Kevin again. Thank you.
My name is Joe McCrummon, and I worked with Kevin for many years. I've been the vice president of TW 555, the triple nickel. Thank you for that, for 6 terms, 7 terms. And I want to tell you some stories about Kevin. You have 13 A-plus personalities in that boardroom, and we all think we're the smartest man in the room. We know that Kevin was. And he did not, he was very humble. He didn't lord it over you. But there's not many people that I can say that he put everybody in the membership ahead of itself. And wonderful man, but I'm gonna tell you something. Not only was he the smartest man, we had many discussions also, but they were some of the same type of discussions, and they were very intense. And Kevin had a streak, and I'm gonna tell you a story that Tyler that just got up here, and I'm not asking you to confirm or deny. Just leave it alone. We moved into a brand new office, and they have some fancy whiteboard glass that you can write on with the dry erase, and real heavy. I know who the brains behind this was. It was Kevin. I'm sure Tyler went along with it also, but they wrote, I don't even remember what they wrote now, but it knocked me crazy. I was mad. I said, you run my board. And they did it backwards. That's what made me think Kevin did it, because he wrote it backwards. But what they did, there were 3 bolts along the top and 3 bolts along the bottom. They unscrewed this over 200-pound mirror glass and wrote on that side and turned it around backwards. I'm sitting there at 4:30 in the morning trying to rub this off. They show up at 8:30 in the morning. I'm mad. I said, okay, which one of you did it? And so Kevin had a practical joke side to him, very much so. I can't tell you how many things he did to my office, and I never retaliated. Not that he can prove. So, but Kevin was a wonderful, wonderful mentor to me. I don't know if you know how big Phoenix is in our system. It's the 2nd largest city in our system. And Kevin, for the longest amount of time, led the entire archived history of our local with grievances, because he would file them in his name. And I will say this, that Rick Solis, after he took over from him, has surpassed him now, because we have a lot more grievances than we did back then. And so Rick did it but you could see the lineage and the mentorship that Kevin did all the way through. And I'll tell you this right now, our membership and this local are blessed beyond measure, because Kevin was not only in our lives, but he was in our life. And anybody in this room from 555, I can tell you right now that we are passionate about our members, we're passionate about our jobs. And Kevin was a beacon and a light under our path. He will be sorely missed, and it wasn't a tough sell to rename the scholarship. Tyler brought it up to the board, and you got 13 A-plus personalities, and we don't agree on much, but that was a given. And special guy, love him to death. Never be forgotten.
Anyone else?
Hello, my name's Tim Miller. I had the pleasure of meeting Kevin many years ago. I was a supervisor. I retired with Southwest, but I went from Chicago to Phoenix, Arizona in 1991, and like my first day on the job, I go, who is that guy at Gate 9? And I go, that's Kevin Carney. I go, well, why is he dressed like he's going to Alaska? I mean, he had like 3 or 4 T-shirts on, long sleeves, a beanie, and it's like 110 out. And I'm like, what's the deal with this guy? And he goes, oh, you'll find out. But 6 months into being in Phoenix, I got there in April. By the time I got to August, I was like, no, I know why but he just learned, he took care of himself. And then years later, I took off and went back to Albuquerque. And then he came into Albuquerque, and I got the pleasure of being a supervisor with Kevin in provisioning before it was closed down. And one day I was with Kevin, and I go, what's that on your phone? And it was his retirement thing. I go, oh, and he goes, you need one. So he got my phone and he put one on there. So he put one on there for me, and he goes, what day would you like to retire? Well, I picked this date and everything. And so he put it on there, and he got me all programmed. Well, that's pretty cool. So I was watching my phone now with this calendar. And then sure enough, COVID hit, and everything kind of just went kind of haywire and stuff. But as a supervisor, working, with TWU, the triple nickels and some soups, we kind of had some. But Kevin, actually, I can't really say it, but Kevin, we got to do some behind the scenes stuff together with some issues that arise at the station. He was already not a rep anymore, but I could really count on Kevin when I had problems. Instead of just kind of pulling a ripcord, shall you say, and trying with discipline and everything, I go, Kevin, what do you think here? And he really mentored me. And I had been a soup for a while already, but just to go into his memory bank and pull out some information and say, these are some things that we've done. It was kind of like going to an attorney, really. Well, you need counsel, Timmy. So he was really sharp at what he did, and he really guided me a lot towards the end. And then there were times that Kevin come to me and says, this guy's, some employees would, let's just face it, in life, some monsters would get into your life and could really affect your performance. And Kevin and I would get behind the scenes and say, let's bring so-and-so in the one-on, as friends, let's not talk about the company or TWU. Let's help him. He wanted, instead of, let's try to slap his hand, he's like, let's help him. So he did a lot of that stuff that probably a lot of people didn't know. But he really, behind the scenes, he really helped a lot of people that probably a lot of people don't even know about. And it was just kind of cool to see how he operated. And in a way like that, it was, you don't need a pen and a pencil, to do stuff. You can get some stuff done by just some nice conversations. But Kevin had that knack. But anyways, another thing I wanted to say is, I'm looking at Kevin when we're doing that. I go, what are you doing? He's like, because I have to do the vacation bids and everything. He goes, I'm going to go see the eclipse. And I go, eclipse? He goes, I've been planning this for 10 years. I go, well, how do you know all this? But he was going to go see this eclipse, I think in the middle of the country. Where was it at? Nebraska, yeah. And I go, how do you know all about it? He goes, oh, I've been studying this. We're going, I think the whole family went on vacation. He goes, we've got everything lined up. We've been planning this for years. I go, an eclipse? And he goes, oh, it's the one eclipse that is never going to happen again, and I'm going to go see it. So he was really excited to go see that eclipse. And I was like, really, huh? But another thing, when the COVID hit and everything, I was doing some stuff. I don't know what's going to happen about retirement, Kevin. And I think my calendar's going to have to change. And he goes, well, he built the program. I was kind of messing around. And I go, what are you doing? He goes, get out of the way. And he gets on a computer and with numbers, and he formulated this computer program for me in about 10 minutes. And I was like, how did you do? He goes, he just charts, bars, colors, graphs. And I go, here you go, put it on a disk for you. He goes, just punch in your numbers and just figure. He goes, how long do you want to do this for? What do you need here? And lo and behold, I kind of still have it and kind of set me up for retirement. So thank you, Kevin. So, but yeah, he was sharp, man, sharp as a tack. But he really cared about a lot of people. And like I said, even with TWU, he was even talking about supervisors need representation. And I go, that's cool. See if you can do that, Kevin. I think he tried, but I said, he wanted to get the soups. He goes, the soups need some representation too. I go, he was in his heart. He was passionate in what he did. But anyways, I just wanted to mention that. But yeah, he set me up for my little computer program. I think he did a couple of them on there for me, but he didn't even ask. He just grabbed my phone and he would program it for me. He was pretty cool though. I'm going to miss him. So God bless. And Kevin, thank you for everything. Okay.
My name is Toby Eunice. I'm a friend of the family. Shelley is my business partner, and Kevin was my best friend. But Kevin had a lot of friends, so I don't know necessarily that I was his best friend, but he never said that to me. I have a lot of wonderful memories with him. I admired him. He was nearly 15 years younger than me, but I admired everything about him. And he was so good at teaching people. We went together to see that eclipse in Nebraska. And up until about 8 months ago, he was still sending me information about the eclipse this October in 2023 and another one in April 2024. We could actually shoot the one in October from my backyard. The one in April was going to require a trip to around Austin, Texas, and he was looking forward to that. About 8 months ago, he wrote me and he said, have you ever ridden a train? And I said, I think I have. And he said, I want to take a train trip. I want to get on a train and just travel for a month. I said, okay, let's do it. My memories of Kevin include a lot of traveling because he joined Shelley and I on our treasure hunt adventures all through the western states, New Mexico, Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana. His job was to sit in the back seat and tell me what I was doing wrong. and where I should have turned, and whether or not I should stop for gas and things like that. But the best part of our trips was when he would make me laugh. He would tell a joke, and his jokes were so subtle. He wasn't a stand-up comedian by any stretch of the imagination, but he would say things so funny, and it would make me laugh so hard that I would have to pull over to the side of the road so I didn't drive us off the side of the road because it was making me laugh so hard. He was so good at that. And he just made me happy. He was the best drone co-pilot a person could have, because the whole time I was flying the drone, he would stand next to me and watch the drone and again, tell me everything that I was doing wrong. Never flew a drone himself, but he knew what was wrong with my flying his drone. My favorite times with Shelley and Kevin were when I invited them over to my house for dinner, because no matter what I made, he pretended that it was the best meal he had ever had. And then we'd schedule ourselves a movie afterwards, and we'd go into the living room where I have 3 recliners. He and Shelley would sit in one pair of recliners right next to the other. I'd sit in the other, and Shelley and I would watch the movie, and Kevin would take a nap. And he'd wake up at the end and tell us what a good movie it was. I taught Kevin everything he knew he needed to know about fly fishing, which took about 5 minutes because I didn't know that much about fly fishing. And after the 5 minutes, he knew that I didn't know that much about fly fishing. He was a good and wonderful man. And I will miss his tenacity of being in the same work for 40 years and being married to the same woman for 40 years was admirable in the sense that I knew I could have never accomplished anything like that. He loved his work, and he loved his family. And I admired that about him as well. The reason I asked Jarrell to turn on the lights when I came up here was not so that I had additional light on me, but I'm the official event photographer. And Shelley has asked me to take a picture of all of you. So I'm going to do that for you so that we have this memory as well, all right? So I'm going to ask, there's nobody over there, so I can do it this way. If you can't see me, I can't see you, all right? So make sure you can see me. 1, 2, 3, and one more, just to make sure nobody's eyes were closed. 1, 2, 3, and beautiful. Thank you very much for joining us today. Make sure that if you haven't already signed the guest book, please take a moment to sign that for us so we can get back to you and share some of the pictures that we're taking today. Also, there's some cards out there so that if you have any special memories of Kevin that you'd like to share, please let us know, because we're going to create a blog post with those so that you can see them. The church has very nicely provided access to the fellowship hall, which is as you go out this door, 100 steps down to the right there, and there's food and beautiful cake that the Ontario team sent out to us, and some drinks as well. So we would appreciate it if you'd like to socialize for just a little bit, if you'd go down there. Any last words, Shelley, before we go?
There's also scrapbooks and yearbooks.
Oh, yeah.
And things like that. If people want to look through them.
There's on the table out here, there are some scrapbooks and photo books with memories in them if you'd like to spend a few minutes with them, all right? Thank you very much for joining us in this service. I'm sure that Kevin is looking down and thinking warmly of all of you and wondering whether or not you'll think of him the same way he does of you. Bless you for coming here.